Frank Further, we've got 3 questions from him. The first one, which I'm not sure if you'll know off the top of your head. What year brought us the primary chain adjusting shoe? Any ideas?
I think it was in the first Ironhead Sportsters. Big Twins definitely haven't got them up to 49. Off the top of my head, I don't honestly know, but I would say mid to late 50s. Definitely much later on than the sort of stuff we do, yeah.
Why did they bring that in, do you know?
Just takes your slack out of the chain, stops it flapping.
Okay.
Because when everything's rotating, you get... It's a bit like why you have a harmonic balancer on the front of a V8 engine or on the front of any engine. You get harmonics, you know, it'll all start to whip and the chain will do that. So you just put a tensioner in and just takes it all out of it.
He also asked, do you also recommend replacing my balls with roller at the clutch hub basket? And what is the correct torque for the clutch hub nut?
Right, okay. Yes, definitely put the rollers in. Right, basically a standard Harley one, yeah? You have little ball bearings, 2 rows of, all the way around a column. I think there's like 40 in there or something. But these have staggered needle rollers, so it takes a lot more of the slack out than what you get with the ball bearings.
Okay.
Because obviously all the parts wear. It was never a good idea anyway, but it's just what they did in the day. But they definitely improve it a lot.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, recommend that. And as for the tightness of the clutch, as long as you've got the lock tab washer on there, don't ever put thread lock on that, because they're an absolute pig of a thing to get off once they've had thread lock on them. If you've got the right socket, brilliant. I would torque it to about probably 20 foot-pounds. I wouldn't go any more than that, because it's got a lock tab washer. You haven't got to crank it to death, you know what I mean? If you haven't got the right socket, punch, trying to hold the outer basket, or inner basket I should say, and just give it a good 2 or 3 taps to lock it down hard with a club hammer, and then just, as long as your lock tabs are on, it's fine.
Frank also asks, do you use a sleeve to install the clutch gear seal?
Oh, on the clutch side, no, I don't. You can get them if you buy any set of motorbike fork seals, and they come with a little, it's just like a funny shaped bit of plastic you just wrap around the part and you hold it, so it opens the lip out on the oil seal just so you don't damage it. But what I do is I just rotate it and feel it by hand, and in the end it will just clonk into place.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I mean, if you can use a seal, it probably is better. It's just I've done so many by hand now, I don't really notice it, you know. But they're really fiddly things trying to hold them in place, the seals, to get it to work, if you haven't got the correct Harley tool. But a little bit of plastic will do the job.
Ed's high again, and he says, what's your opinion of arc welding a frame?
The trouble is, if you're just talking about the tube, yeah, arc welding is pretty much as strong as anything, as long as you can arc weld. But if you're welding a tube into one of the cast iron bits, you can do it. You just use dissimilar rods. I can't remember all the rod numbers now. I used to do a lot of it. But if you get dissimilar rods and heat it up first, yes, you can do it. But not the best idea trying to weld mild steel to cast iron. You can do it, but inherently anything that's welded to cast iron isn't strong. You know, it's very hard stuff to weld properly. Yeah, as long as you're confident with your arc welding. I mean, when we were doing Canary Wharf, we had to, every handrail weld had to be, and bearing in mind there's 50 odd floors of it, had to be x-rayed.
Yeah.
And you have to do them in one continuous weld all the way around the tube. But it's just practice, years of doing it, you know. You've got more chance of getting air in an arc weld than you have with a MIG or a TIG.
Yeah.
You get air bubbles, inclusions they're called.
So it's a bit more skilled, specialised?
Arc welding properly, anybody could snot anything together, but arc welding properly, yeah, it takes a lot of getting used to.
Bit of an art to it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Charles Wiley, he says, Lenkert M88 carb.
Yep.
Manual states fixed high-speed jet should not be removed for service, but the carb is 80 years old. Should I remove it and replace it? And is there a special tool and adjustment that you use?
No. All it is in the bottom of the bowl. Right. So that's your carburetor, M88. That's your idle adjustment up and down for mixture. Okay, on there. Your actual fixed jet is that one. That you can take out, blow out, do whatever you want to do with it. This is the fixed needle underneath the cover cap. Whether this one's been chewed up already, I don't know. See that? Basically that needle has got a tapered end there into that hole, into that port, yeah?
Yeah.
Now the adjustment, there isn't any adjustment, you lock it down hard. You've got to make sure you've got the right size screwdriver first of all. You can feel it straight away, but that I can't pick up. All it is, you have, if you looked at the side of it, so that's your needle, and on the top here there's another piece of brass, and there's just a little tiny slot in it like that. That's pressed to the needle, and that's your thread. It's a very, very, very fine thread, and when they won't come out, all it does is chew the head straight off of that bit of brass, yeah? Hence that screwdriver, and that's the right size screwdriver. So what you've got to do, and invariably the reproduction needles you get are terrible. They really are, because that's mild steel, that's brass, the threaded piece, yeah? Now that doesn't get pressed hard enough onto the needle.
Yeah.
And what a lot of people do is wind them up, and it pushes, which is what's happened to this, it pushes that down. Needle comes up through the hole in the middle. You can't get the screwdriver in the slot because the needles come up through it. Sometimes, if you're lucky, you can get a pair of grips on here and try and undo that, and it may let it come out. But what I do, if they're really old and you can't get them out, put a small punch down into the middle of that needle, yeah, and just give it a little sharp tap, and it'll seat that base. You can't have any fuel leaking through there because that's your jet there. You can, I've done it before, it's not the right thing to do. I mean, you will get them out by drilling them out and getting a new needle, but the needles are rubbish, yeah. The reproduction ones. So if you can get a new old stock one, always get new old stock. You can put mix up a little bit of araldite. Once you've tapped it down in there hard, and just put it around there to try and stop it moving. But they vibrate so much, you know, that's all you can realistically do unless you drill it out and buy. But you need to get a new old stock needle.
Yeah.
And invariably, you can see how fine the thread is in there. The threads are all chewed up, so you have to get the right tap and tap it out as well once you manage to get it out. Oh dear.
Another question I'm not sure you're going to know the answer to, but John Kelly asks regarding the Kuba wagon.
I
wonder how many of these were made. Any idea?
50,435.
To be exact.
To be exact. Don't suppose that includes the Schwimmwagen, but yeah, 50,000 basically.
Mike Patton, and this is when you were replacing the Kings and bushes on the 34 Buick.
Kingpin bushes, yeah.
Just put new bushes in for a 72 MGB. It has two different sized bushes which you have to use. One of the long reamers you talked about. Were the two bushes you pressed in the same internal diameter? The method you used, could this be used for a tapering kingpin such as the ones on the MGB?
I thought they were stepped. I don't think they're tapered, I think they're stepped. MGB, kingpin. They're stepped because there's the tool. Look. So that's your kingpin, large size bush there, small size bush there. That's your large bush, that's your small bush, yeah? So that's a specially made reamer, so you'll have the large reamer there, small reamer there.
Yeah.
So you press those into your stub axle, and then to make sure everything's exactly in line, yeah? You wind that through and you know they're level, concentric with each other in line, you know. All of your reamers have centre dot, centre dot.
Okay.
So they're adjustable. If you, it's very hard to explain, but you could make, if you made something that fits in the small bush end with a point on it, if you've got a lathe or anything, machine it up so it fits in the centre of there, then you know that when that is in there and you're reaming that hole, the big one, it'll be in line, and vice versa. If you look on, I wouldn't know where to find it now, but Paul Brodie on his YouTube videos, he builds a lot of stuff himself. I can't remember what he's reaming out now. It might be a fork yoke or something like that, but he shows you how to make a jig up to hold them. So as long as you're on centre, and on centre you can do a large one on one end, the small one on the other end. That's what those are for, so you can jig them up. Yeah, that's the only, if you don't buy the tool, that's the only way realistically you'll get it dead true.
David King says, what would the compression on the pistons be on a standard 45 WLA? Mine's about 55 psi. And is there anything you can give torque specifications for the motor and the overall maintenance of the bike?
I think in good nick, I think the high compression heads are 70.
So when you do a compression test, as long as both are even, that's a good
fairly.
start.
You don't want any more than about 10 psi between them, and they will run perfectly well anything above 50 or 50 and above.
So 55 psi is pretty good.
Yeah.
Or okay, at least. What would be high compression?
Well, compression ratio and compression psi are completely different things.
Right.
You can have 10 to 1 compression ratio. And I don't know what.
I mean, sometimes when you go to start, you go, whoa, the compression's high on this one because it's difficult to kick over.
Yeah. Right, WLA number 5 heads have a 5 to 1 compression ratio. So 5 bar is optimum. Anything more than that, and something is out of spec, which doesn't really make any sense. 5 bar is 72. Anything above 50 is alright, realistically. I mean, if it's all brand spanking new, yeah, you'll get probably 65 out of it. But
okay. Anything lower than 50, you need to...
Yeah, have a look at it, yeah. But I mean, 5 to 1 is so low, you know. Your average one of these is just an old V8 engine, is probably 9 to 1.
And torque specifications for the motor and overall maintenance?
I don't really give any. It's just do it up tight. Some of the old American manuals say you use a 9-inch wrench and pull it as hard as you can, but you could have Jeff Capes hanging on the end of the f***ing thing, couldn't you? Well, you could, couldn't you?
That's
so
very true,
it doesn't really make any sense. And again,
I've never seen you use a torque on
nah.
Harley.
You use routine maintenance is all in TM 9-879. It's a book you can get from any of your WLA dealers. You've got first echelon preventative maintenance services, and then second echelon private preventative maintenance. Just goes you when to do it, every week, every month, and it just goes through the whole lot. So that's a good read, and you can just make yourself notes down and put it on the wall, you know, every season or every month or whatever. You got to remember these were war machines, and they had to keep them running.
Yeah.
And they were doing however many miles a day through shit, sand, rubbish, blah 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 blah. So general road riding, you don't need to do as much, but it's a good idea to get into a routine once a month or something like that.
Yeah.
Just give them a check over. But that book will tell you everything you need to know.
Andrew Jones says, any pointers on sealing the rear exhaust header? I've got a WLA that seems to leak whatever I do, gasket material or anything that's useful.
You can get what they call exhaust assembly paste, which is liquid, not like you get old stuff called Dum Dum, which was hairy, just basically for filling holes. But basically they leak. Even if you pin them and put a pin in there, that will stop it falling and rattling and jumping up and down. because they were ridden long and hard and all day, and Harley Davidson recommend them running rich, they just fill up with carbon eventually and stop it leaking.
Oh, I see.
That's literally what they...
Self-seals.
Yeah, it just fills up with black carbon. I mean, I've had them and you can't get them out. They've been in there for 80 years. You can't. They're just stuck in with carbon. You can try a new downpipe. It might be undersized. It might be bent up, smashed up. But realistically, a lot of the reproduction exhausts are, same old, isn't it? Reproduction parts. But all you can do is use that exhaust assembly paste, whack a load of that round it, and it bakes off hard and whatever. But if it's got any movement in it, like rattling, it will just fall out. I have seen somebody, they clean the pipe up and put solder around it.
Okay.
So you can, because the solder's soft, and wedge it, just turn it, and wedge it up in the hole. But there's such a ball ache of a thing to line up, you don't know if it's in the right place.
Kimmo says, and this is when you were assembling the oil pump. Currently working on my mate's oil pump. I lapped where the ball bearings, check balls go.
Yeah.
The regulator seat where the ball sits has a groove in it, where that restrictor is swaged in.
Yeah.
As if they broached the groove too deep. This groove makes that check ball unable to seal unless I lap it a lot. If I shine a small torch through the hole with that restrictor and look down the hole, it's very visible. Question is, are they all like that? Is it okay? And should I lap it away?
I would lap it away. Let's have a look at one. I've got one over here. Right, that's the swaged in part he's talking about there, yeah?
Yeah.
Right, I can see no lines in that at all. Where it goes. See, it's very hard to see, but you can see in the back of there's that dull grey ring. Can you see that?
I think so.
Okay, so what it'll be is on this side, they probably banged it in too far. And there's certainly... No, there's no ridge in there, so I would say lap it until it's gone. And possibly take your adjuster screw down another half a turn, maybe a turn from the right setting, and that will take up any tension on the spring that's been lost by lapping it down a bit more. Anything with that ball supposed to seat on shouldn't have a groove in it. Simple as that.
Yeah.
Lapping my life away.
Okay, so a question on Facebook regarding this image. Will this gap affect operation?
So, right, rear piston's got the hole in it. It's all to do with oil splash. That's what it is. So your engine's rotating that way, yeah?
Yeah.
Now, that piston there is never going to get much oil blown up into it, yeah? So you turn him round, oil's getting flicked round that way.
Yeah.
So when it gets to there and that piston's going up, it's throwing oil up that hole.
Yeah.
That's what it's doing. So it won't, that area there being bigger, yeah, won't affect lower crankcase compression or anything like that, because that's still a dirty great hole where the con rod goes up and down. All that will affect is oil splash. It will just sling a load of oil up the bottom. So it's literally, it's not pressurised, it just works off of atmospheric pressure. You could just make a metal plate up with a couple of screws in it, just locate it down in there, as long as it's not high enough to hit the piston skirt or anything like that. Yeah, you'd have to check that out. But it's literally for oil splash.
Okay.
That's all it is. I mean, the Indians, I think, had a plate on them, or a bit of mesh or something, I can't remember now. Anything that will cover that hole, like I say, it's not going to affect bottom crankcase pressure or anything like that. It will just literally throw more oil up into the base of the bore, and you get an oil build up and it'll probably smoke. So yeah, I've just put a little plate in there. It hasn't got to be liquid tight, you know what I mean? It's just to stop splash going up through there, that's all it is. Damn. Cool.